our daily webinar here at the Hispanic.org, bringing again expertise so that we can be informed and we can be educated, get better decisions, and informing our communities about what to do as a reaction, as a response, and then starting to get a plan for recovery for COVID-19. Today is a bad day for me. My mother has been detected COVID positive this morning. So I am absolutely clear in my head how important it is to be clear and informed in our minds so that we can take better decisions and do not panic. It is my greatest pleasure. The only sweetness of this morning is to receive with us today one of my role models, my former boss, my friend, una guerrera and a role model amiga, Paloma Escudero, Director of Communications of UNICEF Global. Paloma Escudero is here with us and to share two main things. The first one is, how is UNICEF reacting and responding towards COVID? How are we doing to protect our children all across the world? And then I'd like to ask Paloma later, how are you managing the communication, the global communication of the pandemic so that we can understand how are you doing that for 193 countries? Paloma, thank you so much for being with us today. Tell us a little bit about how is UNICEF responding to COVID-19? What can we do to protect our children?
Okay, now first of all, Claudia, I really send you my best wishes to your lovely mom. And I think that coming from Spain, I'm from Madrid, as you can understand, it resonates a lot with me and my dear ones in Spain who are really living very difficult days. But I'm also living very difficult days in my daily job in UNICEF. So UNICEF is working in 190 countries and is working really to protect the children that are being affected by COVID, and they are affected in so many ways. They are affected because not all of them, and I'm talking about countries like India, like South Sudan, like the US, or like Italy. So we have to guarantee that all those kids, first of all, they have the right information. We acknowledge their anxiety, their panic, their fears. There's no denial that this is a new world, and we have to talk to children and young people with a language they understand, but also we have to give them agency. We have to tell them, you can do something about it. You are at home, you are locked down, but there is something you can do about it to guarantee, first of all, that we fight misinformation. One of the most difficult challenges at the moment is the lack of accurate sources of information for people. So we have, for instance, at the moment, thousands and thousands of volunteers around the world identifying misinformation, especially around WhatsApp, and providing the accurate way for hygiene, for wash, the accurate sources to address things like safety online, cyberbullying, the accurate sources for them to be reporting if they are victims of domestic violence, accurate sources if they are suffering the impact of mental health. But at the same time, another thing that UNICEF is, of course, an expert with is what we call now the continuity of learning. We have 2 billion children that should be in a school that at the moment are out of school, and less than half of them have the minimum access to tablets, to computers, or to free internet access. The disruption on the schooling, the disruption on the academic progress is going to be enormous. So at the moment for us, there's a huge programmatic work going on with education authorities, with teacher associations, with the schools, but also with parents that now have become school teachers, while at the same time they have to be working, they have to be coping with the challenges. Another area of work that for us is important is how to focus on the children who are going to be the most vulnerable. Lots of work going on children with disabilities, lots of work going on migrant and refugee children. Rohingya camp in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh has already coronavirus. Impossible there to have access to water and soap, to have access to the minimum measures to be promoting isolation, how we can help those kids. And then many other, like for instance, kids in prison, kids in detention centers. Those kids at the moment are at serious risk and nobody's paying attention to them. So to summarize, for us really at the moment, our key challenge is to be talking to leaders, to decision makers, to employers, and to create an agenda for action around COVID to fully support the agenda for the most vulnerable families, the most vulnerable children. And this is the first time we have a global pandemic that is universal, that is affecting rich and poor, that it doesn't identify ethnicity, so it doesn't identify borders. And at this moment, of course, we are seeing a lot of generosity, a lot of government packages, but very few of them are putting families and children at the heart of it. So for us, the agenda is, for every child, we need the right protection in the COVID crisis. And it is not an easy message. The world is still on the big numbers, on the casualties, on the socioeconomic consequences. We are not thinking now that really they are putting a human face on how they have to support to those families who live out of daily wages and they are losing their job, those families who are really living in very small apartments or houses in the US, living 10, 12 people. So who is putting those people at the heart of the response and at the heart of the agenda?
Yes, and I think that you're right. I think that we all think that, or the focus is right now on, like, again, what I said is like getting a call for your parents, the people that are really at risk because their age or because their health condition. So we haven't actually explored enough the impact of COVID on children in two ways. I think that you mentioned those that are left, that have a risk of actually being left behind because they don't have internet to be schooled out of the schools. Those children that, like in the States, I think that there's more than 800,000 people that are food dependent on the school. That means if they don't go to school, they don't have their primary lunch that day. And so understanding the implications as well of, those that are most at risk or migrants. So tell us a little bit more about, like, guide us a little bit more about, like, we have not, I think, understood yet what is the impact of COVID in children, those that are, schooled at home by the parents that have to work and have to cope, and what do you have resources for them, as well as for those migrants, those families separated, as well as those that have at risk of being left even further behind, either at the nutrition level or educational level?
I mean, of course, I'm going to talk around the angle of communication. That, for instance, we have put together in Africa what we call the children's diaries. We have thousands of kids that every day share with us 1 minute about what they are living. And that for us is really the heads up. These are the kids talking about being left at home on their own for 8-10 hours a day. Those are the kids saying that the teachers that were supposedly being teaching online have disappeared. They are the ones really denouncing the cyberbullying. Now we have kids that perhaps were online in the screen 2-3 hours, and now they're spending 8-10 hours. And the risk. So for us, really to be using the children themselves and the young people to alert us of those issues are important. And at the same time, of course, being UNICEF, we have the possibility to be sitting at the table of the government decision-making processes and being able to make sure that especially anything around health, anything around education, but more and more anything linked to the protection at home against violence and others are going to be important. What we can do is first to be the alarm, to be the ombudsman, to be the watchdog. And also at the moment we are focusing, our key target audiences is parents. Parents are desperate for coaching. They are desperate for information. We have a parenting portal that gets 1.5 million visits a day only on English, and we have it in more than 20 languages. And there is where parents are asking how to talk to my kid when it's anxious, how to be able to teach my kid that is 15-year-old and going in high school things that I have never learned. So also I think this is a moment of being available there to be supporting, to be providing tips, but also sometimes to be referring to experts. Also on the positive side, I mean, I have to say, that also a lot of good things have been brought up. I mean, the sense of solidarity, the sense of these world leaders saying, we are here to support, we are here to help. Just to mention Portugal. I mean, Portugal has been amazing. They have just announced that they are going to give legal status to all migrants populations while COVID is on and they have access to full health services. I mean, I hope EU will learn from that and others. So also on the other side, I think that it is so unusual, it's so uncertain that perhaps we are finding unexpected leaders and really coming up with a lot of proposals, a lot of solutions. And at the same, we have a network with nearly 100 million social media followers. We need to amplify those positive examples and giving the message to people, we can do something. We are not just stuck at home.
And I want to ask, before going to communications, which is an area I would love to crack, but before going there, if you could just highlight a couple of the, you just mentioned Portugal, but a couple of other examples of countries or initiatives that have caught your attention that you think that that's amazing. And also, if you don't mind just sharing a couple of what you think are the most valuable tips for parents that are at home from our leaders listening to this webinar today, that they can actually share with their communities and say, these are the 5 things or the 3 things that you consider that could be applicable for the Hispanic community, that again, you know, like just to repeat this, we are disproportionately affected, not only because we're at risk of losing our jobs today and our income, and that means that we cannot provide for our families, but also, you know, like we're disproportionately exposed. We're the people that are delivering the food and that are like out there still working, and we live in multi-generational families where we have, you know, like a number of, you know, like the mother and the grandmother and people that are exposed. So again, if you can give us a sense of like your incredible initiatives that you have seen in this time in different countries or different leaders taking action that you would like to highlight, and then a couple of tips for parents.
Let me start with the parents. I really will invite you to go to unicef.org, to our parenting portal. And I think we have a fantastic video with 5 tips to talk to your kids. Perhaps sometimes the common sense is what is more important. One of them is that don't lie to your kids. Don't pretend that nothing happens, because they know something is happening. They know that what is happening is serious. And the main thing is spend time with them. Sit down with them and not just have a serious conversation. Sit down with them, playing dominoes, playing puzzles, and that's the way you are going to start talking to your kids. And also the kids have to know, of course, that you have also your own anxieties. As you say, you are the risk of losing your job, but also in a way, the important message of we are in this together, they have to understand that they are not on their own. If they have a family behind, never a family has been more important than now. A different topic is when you have kids exposed with no families, you know, with abuse at home. But in the majority of cases, nothing replaces the security of having mom and dad, grandma, granddad with you talking about those issues. And then the second thing, also very important for those kids, is the routine. Mm-hmm. Give them a routine. Give them something that they know every day is predictable. If you're in the US, you still can go out to the parks. You still can go out, you know, to play outside. But it is important that these kids know that life really, it is not just suddenly disappearing and they are going to go in permanent holidays. And that sense of purpose is going to be important. Or on initiatives around the world, wow, there are so many. Perhaps I should be highlighting, of course, Italy, that we all know about it. But I would say that Italy is one of those countries who really is embarking in this tremendous crisis with an incredible spirit of positive spirit. I think that it's the community action. I think that what I'm more impressed in every country is how now is community with matter, is the community in action. The critical actions to support each other are coming from your neighbors, are coming from your relatives. It is the people who are accompanying the old people. Also, I can mention Spain. We have at the moment more than 100,000 volunteers accompanying people who are living on their own because they are over 70s or over 80s. I think that we really have to do now like a repository of how community is leading, is embarking, because this is at the moment, this is human. This is human to human. Forget about the policies. Of course, the policies have to come, but we are talking now about life or death. We are talking about life or death, and life or death depends on us being there for our colleagues. And for instance, in Italy, you can see all the neighbors at night at 8 o'clock going to the window and saying, who needs anything? Oh, my mom is sick. Oh, you know, I need this, I need that, and it is just people who never talk to each other. They are talking through the windows, and of course, you know, all the solidarity around the health workers or others. But I would say that perhaps for me personally, at the moment, it is the human side of saying, at the moment, you can depend on governments. No, you depend on you, on your neighbors, and making sure, for instance, I live in an apartment block in Manhattan. Well, just to leave a little note under the door to my elderly neighbors saying, you know, we are here. Please, anything you need, this is my mobile phone. I mean, those sort of things, we know, perhaps it's cheesy, perhaps it's tacky. At this moment, that can save lives.
Yeah, and it can bring us, I think that it can bring us back to humanize us, bring us back to the notion that we're all human, bring us back to, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or a Democrat, and it doesn't really matter how much money you have or how, you know, how many degrees you have, what color of your skin. This virus is gonna like make no distinction, so why should we be making one? Paloma, I want to ask you about you're the director of communications of probably the most important UN agency in the world. You're managing 190 countries. You have to tell them how to communicate, even if the pandemic is in different stages. And, you know, like in some instances, they are phase 3, in some instances haven't started, different cultures, different habits, different ways. How are you managing global communication? So what is your strategy? What are the phases? Are you facing health, solidarity, recovery? Is there anything that we should know about how you're doing it? Tell us how you're doing it and what structure, what themes, how are you managing?
Well, first of all, I'm privileged because I have, as you know, a fantastic team. So we have a mainly digital team here in New York, but also a team that handles content strategy, media, and also handles internal communication for an organization of 20,000 team members that keep working 24/7. But what is important for us at the moment is to make sure that everybody is clear about the key objectives of the organization, the key messages that we need to be communicating all at once. And that changes day by day, by the way, but also that we leave them the whole, I mean, they have full autonomy, full flexibility to adjust, to adapt to whatever is the most important issue at country level. So we have at the moment the most, like our overall objective at the moment is to put the protection of the most vulnerable children at the heart of the social and political agenda around COVID. We are, at the moment, of course, we are hands-on. We have our programming, especially around water, sanitation, and health, but also around education, around protection, and also, of course, half of our work is around humanitarian and settings. So they have to know that at the moment we need to make sure that in each country we reflect the needs and the situation of the most vulnerable children. We produce, as you know, we produce overall assets, overall videos and others. We also negotiate at global level with the key global channels, no? Especially with the mobile companies and the tech companies. But at the end, as you say, some countries like in Europe, they have moved from the hand wash message and they have moved into the impact of the lockdown on the young people. But at the moment, for instance, one of our key issues in South Sudan, in Eritrea, and others is the lack of affordable water and the total lack of soap. So how we are going to be advising those communities how to protect each other. All those messaging comes from our program people, and what we have is what we call it's a daily, very important daily newsletter. I have now just finished 2 hours call with all our regional teams. We have daily calls, but especially at the moment, what we are asking everybody is if you don't have resources and you just have $1 to invest, reinforce your digital platforms. So right. The most important thing at the moment is everything is digital. It's true that in the case of Africa, we are also doing a lot of work on radio and on TV, but now the prime platform is digital. So what we are having is 24/7 digital training webinars in 6 languages, continuously training people, continuously, so they feel comfortable to be creating a microsite on COVID, to be creating a parenting portal.
So you're equipping your teams to be digitally savvy.
Absolutely.
And do you feel that the technology platforms are reacting as generously as you would have hoped? Like the Facebooks of the world, and are they playing ball with you?
I think that, I mean, each platform is different. I mean, WhatsApp has become the king. And WhatsApp is, but for instance, with WhatsApp, the biggest issue at the moment is misinformation, or this fake news, and then we are working with them really to identify and to be cutting the misinformation at the heart. Facebook, of course, in many countries is internet, so we are working with WHO, who really are doing, I think, a fantastic job, and with Facebook to make sure that the key basic messages are working. I would say YouTube has become the prime content platform for young people. So with each one of them, I think that we are trying to make sure that we learn from them. But things are moving so fast. So I think that we are just one player among many.
And Paloma, just to finish, because we're, like at the time, it went so fast. The Hispanic community has come together to create an ecosystem of, if you want communication, to talk to our community, which is 41% of the community, according to the report of CM Plus, is actually, like in denial about COVID from our community. 41% of Hispanics are in denial on COVID compared to 19% of non-Hispanics. So we still have to do a lot of work in awareness raising, and I think that health part. But I would love to count on you to get your support and your guidance once we get together this ecosystem of communication. If you want to talk to our community, we have the creative industry, CMC, Círculo Creativo. We're going to get the PR agencies. We're going to get media companies so that they can donate the space. Once we have that ecosystem, we want to focus on solidarity. Pretty much on health, on that awareness, but then on solidarity, so that we can support each other. Precisely what you were talking about, Italy and Spain and other countries, about being that neighbor, about being human aspect of supporting each other, which is, I think, something that we could benefit tremendously as Hispanics if we survive COVID, becoming stronger at the end. So would love to count on you and your support, on your guidance, on making sure that our messaging is consistent with what you're putting out as well.
I mean, you can count on us. I would say in English and in Spanish, please, at your disposal, all our platforms, but also really, really looking forward to engage with the key platforms. I mean, I'm an Hispanic in the US.
Sí, so absolutely.
As I say, I have to work for home as much as I work for abroad.
Yeah, Paloma, two, 3 questions have arisen. If you don't mind, just I can send them to you by email, and there's one in particular that I think would apply for everybody, saying, let's change fear for love. I think that's overall the message, and we saw a very powerful video yesterday on that. But also, how can we replicate the type of training, the digital training that you're doing with your local community? So how could we use some of those tools to educate our community?
Yeah, we call it digital labs, and it's at your disposal. So it's a very easy training, but of course, as I said, let me know, because also I would like to be engaged in the UNICEF USA. They have a very good, now they have renewed all their management, and they are really moving into Hispanic community.
Yes, fantastic. Paloma Escudero, Director of Communications of UNICEF Global. Yes, thank you so very much for being with us, and thank you, all of you. See you tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Stay healthy, stay strong. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.